disconnected. I don't know. It might have. Oh, it looks like it's back, but I'm kind of
I just see a black screen.
okay. Let's
Okay, now you're starting Windows back up again. Your timer.
really. The timer's
Or
back
is
up?
that a replay? No, that's a replay. The stream it ended. You have to
Yep.
start a new stream.
Hmm. Well, that's so weird because it says end stream here. Oh, it says back. Livingston says it's back, but yeah,
Okay.
you don't see it on there, do you? Let's see. He
Yeah,
says he
right now
sees.
it's
Yeah, he
still
says
on
he sees
replay.
all of us.
Yeah,
Hmm.
when I refresh it, it's showing it's a replay, not
Showing the replay,
live.
huh? Yeah. That's what it's doing for me. Um, the stream is here and up, says Livingston. Well, that's really confusing because yeah, YouTube I think cut it out. I don't know.
There is a new one. I see. I just got a brand new notification. It started 58 seconds ago.
Okay, so maybe we're back up.
There are 9 people on the new one.
Okay, yeah. Let me see. I'll try to figure it out here. Guys, yeah, watching the struggle bus. Yeah. Indeed, sir. Indeed. Um, yeah. No, it says it's live back up again right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's Sorry about that, guys. I don't actually never had that happen before. That is quite strange, because normally you're either one or the other. You're not both. Uh, as far as like is the stream dead
Yeah.
or not? Did you find it, GA? I see it now.
No, I think I'm getting. Yeah, now I got it. I got the notification. Yeah,
Yes, that's weird. Okay,
I see it now. Strange.
we're back. Okay, yeah, strange times. Strange times.
Yeah.
Over
So
here.
I mean, again, it's just to be devil's advocate here. The whole trilogy as a whole could have been separated from the original, and that would have solved a lot of problems. For people that have problems with the sequel trilogy, if it were a standalone, separate from the prequels and the original trilogy, would be in a much better place as a whole.
Yeah, no, I think so too. It was a tricky thing that they were trying to do. You know what I mean? Because they want to continue telling that story. It feels so half in and half out to me though, because George obviously had his treatments, and they wanted to honor George by even doing 7, 8, and 9, but then they don't use his input on it. So it's like it's kind of a mixed bag. But GA, what do you think? If it was Snoke, if it wasn't Palpatine, is it because I can kind of feel the devil's advocate, the people that would be mad about this
Yeah.
saying, well, they didn't have to bring Palpatine back though. Anakin killed
Right.
Palpatine. That's why it's a big deal. What do you say to that?
Okay, now just to make a couple things clear. Now, if the argument is just flat out, we don't want Palpatine. Period. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an argument. Okay, we could Snoke could have made him a Sith, made him be actually Plagueis in disguise. Whatever. There's lots of things you could have did with that. Okay, if that's argument purely just that, not talking about Anakin's legacy, not talking about Lucas how he should have envisioned it or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about just continuing, first of all, like we mentioned, it was supposed to be 9. Okay, that was Lucas's vision, and people will always find something to complain about. And if we just stopped at 6 and said we're starting something new, they would have said, Disney, agree. What are you doing? It's supposed to be 9. It's not supposed to be 6. You know what I mean? So we had to go with the 9. Let's just be fair about that. We had to go with the 9. Now, Palpatine, a lot of people are EU lovers, and they were EU lovers before this, and everyone talks about it. Okay, Palpatine was back in the EU, and it was not this outrage when Palpatine was back in the EU. We could debate all day that the EU did it better than Disney. That's a different debate. But if your anger is you brought Palpatine back, well, then you also got to remember that they did that in the EU, and no one was complaining back then. So it was, it was okay. People liked it. It was a pretty popular series. All right. As far as him killing Palpatine and people saying, well, Vader killed Palpatine, they should just, that's it, and the legacy and all this other stuff. The prophecy was not thou shalt kill Darth Sidious.
Right.
That wasn't the prophecy. the prophecy, and again, the only mention, like Santa said, the only time they said prophecy was in the prequels, and that's when they told him the chosen one. And again, it was very vague. He was the chosen one, and we usually prophecies come in stanzas or in lines or in iambic pentameter, whatever you want to put it in. It was one line: chosen one, bring balance to the Force.
Right.
That was the prophecy. Okay. Bring balance to the Force is a very vague thing. Okay. You could kill Palpatine and think, oh, that brings balance to the Force. Not necessarily. We had an argument, discussion. I don't say argument, but a discussion in the Discord with Jen. She was talking about how peace. There's peace, and it's like, well, balance of the Force isn't necessarily about peace.
Right.
That's socio-political environment of the galaxy. Now, a side product of balance of the Force is peace, but that's not what the prophecy was about. It wasn't about bringing peace to the galaxy. It's about bringing balance to the Force.
Right.
And again, this is just my view. To me, killing Palpatine isn't the end all be all of bringing balance to the Force. Also, because prophecies are tricky. That what happened in that, him killing Palpatine, then coming back, and everything that happened, he was a chosen one because he had to start that process for it to happen. Meaning, if he did not do what he did,
Right.
everything came after it, which brought balance, which we still don't even know if there is balance right now. You know what I mean? We don't know if that maybe bringing balance is a never-ending struggle. I mean,
right.
And it's kind of an allegory on life too.
No, I agree. I think people sometimes, I think too, you got to try to figure out what is balance of the Force. And I've seen a lot of different takes on it. I've seen a lot of people talk on it. I was actually I actually wrote a script for this very topic, and I was going to talk about basically how it didn't hurt the prophecy and all that. You know what I mean? And I worked a lot on that script. I did a lot of research. Star Wars Theory had a great video from like 2 years ago talking about the prophecy of the Chosen One. And he was like trying to explain it and break it down. And there was some stuff from Legends that he was talking about and different things like that, right? I saw Thor Skywalker do a great video about how it does ruin Palpatine's, journey and prophecy and everything. And there's the idea of what balance in the Force even is. I don't think it's the absence of the dark side. I think a lot of people suggest that the Sith themselves, the reason they're out of balance of the Force is because there's always light and dark side, but the Sith manipulate the dark side, look to enhance the dark side, bring things out of balance, pursue power, and do all of these things, whereas the Jedi are more in a line with what the Force desires. They're not looking to manipulate. They want to flow with the Force to a degree. And so the idea, I think, of the prophecy and the elimination of the Sith as bringing balance to the Force, because I do believe there's a line in Revenge of the Sith where Obi-Wan says, is he not the chosen one? Is he not to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force?
Perhaps the prophecy we have misread.
That's literally the next line, right? But
Yep.
I think the rationale, and it would depend on the fan, right? And that's what these discussions are for. But I think the rationale is the Sith themselves are like a cancer to the Force. And so in a way, Anakin rooted out that cancer, and that is why he is the chosen one and why the prophecy matters. And then by bringing Palpatine back and threatening the Sith to return, it basically threatens to undo all of that, and that cancer is just back. Not to mention the fact that if there are thousands of Sith worshippers out there in the unknown regions, then he didn't really eliminate the Sith at all. So I don't know if you guys have, Santa, I'll go to you. What do you think about that? Do you have like sort of a rebuttal? Is there a way that makes sense to you? And what do you think of that definition of balance?
Yeah, I spent, just so folks know, I spent a better part of a year on Thor Skywalker's server. And it's a popular discussion point there. And you've nailed it with the cancer analogy. That's one that's used frequently to describe balance. So there's a couple of questions that result from it. One, did Palpatine truly die at the end of Return of the Jedi? There's some vagueness there. And so if he did not truly die, and I believe he did, I think the evidence is there that he is in a corpse, that the body that he is inhabiting is a corpse. So while Palpatine has some form of life, it's not uh, what he was.
Right.
So I believe that he did die at the end of Return of the Jedi, and that makes a big difference. So if, let's say that you have cancer and it is completely eradicated, but later on the cancer comes back, that's a new iteration of cancer. It's not a continuation of the previous. So if it was truly eradicated the first time. And so you could look at it that way, in that perspective, to say, yeah, the Sith are a cancer. Anakin destroyed that cancer. That cancer was gone. Now, years later, the cancer has come back. A cancer has come back.
Yeah.
It has it's the same type of cancer, but it's a new iteration of that cancer. So I get the argument. But I think to be cancer free doesn't, anybody who's survived cancer knows that that's not something that's for the rest of their life, that they're cancer free. They go to checkups, they go back, and they have doctor visits to specialize to look for cancer. So it's not like they get this, a certificate that says you'll never get cancer again. And I think that's the analogy to use. If that's the one that describes the relationship of balance best, balance is a healthy body free of cancer.
Yeah.
And Anakin returned the body to free of cancer for a time, and then cancer recurred, and now through Rey, the cancer has been eradicated again, and who knows, that cancer might come back in another form again later. Not Palpatine, not the iteration of Palpatine we had, but it could be something else.
Yeah.
It could be Sith again. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. What do you think? What do you think, GA? What do you think about that complaint?
I have a much more existential view on it. I mean, we do like to look at, Jedi good, Sith bad, evil good, evil. Where I see, it's a yin and yang. Okay, the dark side of the Force is still the Force. The light side of the Force is the Force. You can't have one without the other. Maybe it's my Bendu training.
Yeah.
A little much. Where they say it's, with the Bendu, there's no light side, there's no dark side. There's just the Force.
Right.
And it's what you do with it that determines it. So there's a yin and yang aspect to it. And the main thing I look at is, he was supposed to bring balance to the Force, right? Well, why is there prophecy to bring balance to the Force if there's been 1,000 years of Jedi peace and no
Dude,
Sith?
I think about that a lot.
I'll tell you why. The Jedi, who were supposed to just be, keepers of the faith, keepers of the Force, and they, spread and protect the innocent, or whatever you want to say, became involved in politics. They had this council that became like, the height of Rome, and they had a lot of hubris. Yeah. And they started becoming involved in politics and involved in the politics of the galaxy, when they really shouldn't have. It wasn't their place. And that's why Qui-Gon was like, we really shouldn't even be doing this. This isn't what we're supposed to be. And he's the rebel. You know what I mean? So the council became bloated, and they had a lot of hubris. And I think Yoda realized it, and that's why he felt so guilty about what happened. He's like, I should have seen this, and I didn't. You know what I mean? So to me, the balance means not one side can't have more power than the other. So you had the Jedi with all this power, and it was too unbalanced. And then Anakin came along, and technically, when he became a Sith, he brought the balance for a second, and then it went completely the other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then it had to go, and then he, at the end of Return of the Jedi, he brought it back again. You know what I'm saying? So I see the scales, and you can't have one without the other. So eradicating the dark side, to me, is a silly notion in Star Wars, because you really have to eradicate the Force, because that's what it is. It's not something you can eradicate. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. So if we, and hopefully we'll get some people. By the way, guys, if you are one of these people that actually absolutely thinks that Anakin's arc was ruined, I want to hear from you. You can jump on here. We can talk about it. We can get you in one of these groups with people. So yeah, let me know if you're angry, if you're silently watching and you're all angry about it. Let us know, and I'll check the Twitter too, because I know there's probably some people out there. But I think, frankly, when it comes to this whole thing, I think a big part of it is just the fact that it is Palpatine himself, and had it maybe been a different Sith, that would have sat a little bit better with people. I think it's a fair argument to say that, that I think he died too. I agree with Santa that he died at Return of the Jedi, and I think he's even kind of hints at that in the film because he says like I've died before, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. Can I throw something in real
yeah,
quick
yeah,
on that? I should have. I forgot to mention it last time.
yeah, yeah,
If you think about that, when we talk about the yin and yang, Exegol is the complete flip side coin of Octu. Okay.
yeah.
They designed it that way. You have the keepers on Octu who take care of it, and you have the Sith cultists on Exegol that take care of it. Okay. You have the Jedi in order to keep the living force and to the next generation and bring it on, have Force ghosts. The Sith have things of unnatural means.
Mm.
So to me, his corpse was just the embodiment. It was being forced and kept animated by the embodiment of the dark side, and they were there to pass it on. Now, Palps being Palps, when he realized that he could like come back again, when he started the diet, he's like, "Oh shizzle, I can come back. Screw this," you know what I mean? And that's when he tried draining him. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
so it's a complete yin and yang with it, and so I think what he was, that animated corpse with all the Sith and everything in it, was just the flip side of a Force ghost, of all the Force ghosts helping her, and that's why and I agree, it was like an animated corpse rather than
Yeah, yeah,
help.
yeah. No, I think so too, and I think that actually helps the prophecy a little bit more as well because to me it plays. I sort of talked about this on the stream this morning with Justin, but it plays a little bit more to me like Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? Like, what was it, the third or fourth age that we see the films in?
Hmm.
And in the second age is where there's like the young Galadriel and she's running into Sauron, and Sauron, and there's even more powerful people than Sauron, honestly, in that mythos. We just come in on the story at a time where Sauron is the one kind of trying to return, and what he had done in the second age, was still remembered, but not by everyone. And that was the evil that had been tarnished then. You know what I mean? It had been vanquished then, but it lived on. Same thing with Harry Potter. Voldemort
Hmm.
rises and is destroyed. And when we come in on the story, it's him threatening this return. And to me, Palpatine has always just represented like the devil. He's like Satan incarnate. He's like so super evil. And even in some of the legend stuff, when I read him and I read the character, I've been reading the Plagueis novel again. And man, even when he's like young as a child, on that planet, he's like wicked, dude. Like wicked and calculating and, all of these different things. The very beginning of that book is so epic because it starts out actually right after he's killed Plagueis. And like he describes the room, it's all strawn about, and things are crazy because Plagueis was struggling and all that. And he walks out and he just feels the dark side and he feels the power of the entire galaxy. And he's insanely freaking powerful, is basically what I'm saying. And if anybody was going to be able to come back and threaten, and if the Sith were ever going to incarnate into one being, it was going to be Palpatine. I think it makes complete and total sense to me. But here's the next thing I want to throw at you guys, because I think this is another thing that people would bring up as the people that do feel robbed, or that feel like Anakin got robbed. If Anakin showed up a little bit more than just a voice, if he was there as a Force ghost or potentially, crazy fan fiction in the flesh doing something, would that have made it easier for you guys? Would that have been better? And would that have maybe helped these other people accept it a little bit more? What do you think, Santa?
Wow, that's good. Well, first of all, just to tie back, I love the shizzle part. I think had they brought back, and I think you touched on something here as far as the people who are upset about Palpatine coming back. Had it been a different Sith, had they brought Plagueis back, that could have solved it. And they could have shown that, just like they did with Palpatine and the jars of Snoke's, they could have had Plagueis explain that his essence traveled through to Palpatine when Palpatine offed him, and then it traveled through to Snoke when Anakin offed Palpatine, and if you kill the current iteration, he could travel on to Rey. Let's say that. Let's
Yeah.
If Rey is just like Palpatine was going to do, right? He said, if you take it down, then or you strike me down, I'll possess you, right? That could have been Plagueis saying that, and that could have tied it all together. That he was, surprised all the way back from before the guy that carried it all the way through. I think that's a strong argument for that.
Yeah.
And again, just to play the side that I'm engaged with lots of folks that don't agree with me, right?
Right.
And
Right.
So I spend a lot of time talking to them, and I do think that there's a good argument for that.
Right.
And yeah, the Plagueis novel comes off, when you read it, it comes off very much as a Palpatine novel, right?
Yeah, it
It's
does.
really
Yeah.
about Palpatine. And just the insane amount of foresight and playing a master game of chess that's bigger than anybody can see. And he's playing 20 moves down the road, and you're focusing on the move he just made. And he's ready to defeat you with different tactics. So yeah, Palpatine to me is the best. This is me personally, is the best antagonist for this whole thing, because he was so far ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
So much smarter than everybody, so much more powerful than anybody even knew. To me, he's the perfect antagonist, but I get the Plagueis angle as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing when the dichotomy with Plagueis and Sidious is Plagueis's path to power wasn't about like being the guy. You know what I mean? It was about being the puppet master.
Yeah. He wanted Palpatine to basically be his puppet. Yeah.
Right. He wanted to be the puppet master. And I don't think he ever wanted to sit on a throne. He wanted to be the puppet master to where he had all these chess pieces and he was just controlling all of them. And he was perfectly fine being the shadow, but he knew he had all the power. Okay. That's was his vision of power. Whereas Palpatine's vision of power is, man, no, I'm front and center, dude. You're going to look at me. You're going to bow to me. You know who's in power. And because I believe there's a line in the Plagueis novel too about what do you want more. And when he was seducing, it was about you want power. You want power. You I know you crave that, and it ended up being his undoing too. So
yeah, no, definitely. I love how in the Plagueis novel, Plagueis makes special mention of the fact that he wants whoever his puppet is to be a human. And because of the perception of humans and how the galaxy and the way he talks about humans is really interesting, because he's like, there's something about them. They just want to force themselves all over the galaxy. They're spreading more than any alien race. And, as a human myself, I was like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's us. That's pretty much what we do. But it was really interesting. But yeah, I totally agree with what Sam was saying, man. Like, I think Palpatine's the perfect villain. Like, we had this really interesting thing happen with this script, right? This script that apparently everybody loves, and I did this hot take video and everyone's freaking out about. But so a lot of people are fond of this Colin Trevorrow Duel of the Fates script. And one of the things I said, and I stand by this, is to me it's so much more ridiculous to just introduce this new character that's somehow behind the scenes doing things, pulling strings that Palpatine wanted Vader to take Luke to. To me, it's like, no, that's way too ridiculous. Palpatine was the perfect choice. I know it's maybe a hard pill for some people to swallow, but Palpatine was the perfect choice to bring back to this trilogy and to do this ending. And yeah, man, it's it's an interesting thing. I think I'm gonna try to get Angus in here, but I don't know. I kind of feel like Angus might feel the same way we do.
Well, I mean, for the folks that are really upset, it really depends on your perspective of the chosen one prophecy. I know we spent a good amount of time talking about what prophecies mean, and one thing that wasn't mentioned, prophecies tend to echo as well. You go back in biblical perspective, and some of the prophecies about Christ were fulfilled prior to him through like David, right? And David fulfilled a lot of those prophecies in a different way. Not to say that David completely fulfilled the Christ prophecy, but that he fulfilled it in a way. And then Jesus came along, fulfilled the prophecy in its entirety. So the prophecies tend to have that kind of echo effect. But if you interpreted it that Anakin was the Christ of the story, with the virgin birth, right? No, all of that, and that he brought about the Christology type of balance, I can absolutely get where you might have a little burn, right? Like, what do you mean? There's another savior other than Jesus Christ, for Christians. So
Right.
I get it. I truly do. I just think that, again, I predate the prophecies. There was no such thing as a chosen one, and I am a personal fan of the Zahn trilogy. And even during the prequels, I mentioned this on our Discord. During the prequels, somewhere in my head, I still had that Zahn trilogy as the sequels. And so the prophecy to me never meant that Anakin was the Christ of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even when you think of like Matrix, I mean, they did the same thing. They had the chosen one. It was literally called the chosen one. And surprise, surprise, you're not the first one.
Right.
So I mean, it's
Well, that's another way that they could have went with it. In fact, one of my first videos, maybe the very first video that I ever did on YouTube, was actually theorizing that, yeah, there's more than one chosen one, and that the Force itself, when the Force would go out of balance, it would pick someone. It would basically manifest its own abilities, like the cosmic Force abilities, into a being, and that's what Anakin was. Now, look, Anakin was a Force birth. I think he was conceived of the midichlorians. Honestly, like, here, we could get real nerdy with this. Like, this is one of the things that I think about sometimes, right? I think about the Force probably created Anakin almost more to destroy the Jedi than they did even to destroy the Sith. Because the current Jedi that were under Yoda and that were in the Old Republic, they were everywhere. They seemingly had no real challenge to them, and they were honestly falling from grace. I mean, even in Attack of the Clones, their ability to commune with the Force is severely diminished, right? Like, it's almost like the Force is rejecting the current Jedi. And it could be a thing, and I thought, honestly, that this was something that maybe, after I saw the Last Jedi trailers, that I thought maybe Luke would talk about. You know what I mean? Would say, hey, look, my father wasn't born of the Force to just destroy the Sith. He was born to destroy the Sith and the Jedi. That's why I'm not bringing the Jedi back. That's the whole game. And the Force itself doesn't want light side users and dark side users anymore, which goes into like a gray Jedi kind of thing. I always thought that was completely possible. But I think there are people out there that really think like Rey doing this takes away from Anakin. You can't even really call him the chosen one. He's definitely still the chosen one.
Yeah.
He's born of the Force, and everything that he does had a major impact on both the cosmic Force and the living Force. So I don't know, man. Like, I've always thought that Anakin could be one of many and still be the chosen one, and still be like this massively impactful being. You know what I mean?
Because of you two, just
would Rey been anywhere if there wasn't Anakin's lightsaber?
Right.
I mean, he's the crux to everything.
Yeah. Well, let me challenge you again from the devil's perspective, right? Yeah. Break down somebody who believes that Anakin was the Christ of the story.
Right.
And that this undoes him being the Christ of the story.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around Anakin being the Christ of the story just because he falls, right, because he murders the kids, right?
Christ didn't, have multiple murders,
well,
right?
He was, if you want to talk about, if you want to make analogies, he was kind of the Lucifer of the story.
A little bit.
He was the shining star, and he fell from grace. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I think that there is, the virgin birth thing is so interesting. You know what I mean? And I think that that was probably something that people thought was really weird. And it is a little bit super mythological and sort of hero's journey. And it's really supposed to represent something more like consciousness being born. Like, traditionally, a lot of people like a Joseph Campbell or a Sam Keen would tell you that what the virgin birth really represents is going away from an animalistic way of breeding and having something of like consciousness and being fully formed as a compassionate being, that birth is really what they're talking about. They're not actually talking about a physical birth that didn't have father. It's like sort of a new way of doing it, a rejection of the animalistic way, and now this birth of this consciousness, right? This new consciousness, and so in that way, like I think that what George was trying to say was that like Anakin is this birth of this new thing. He's clearly a hero, and that consciousness being born into the galaxy is something that's going to affect everything. You know what I mean? But if somebody was saying to me like, "Hey, look, like Anakin's like, Christ-like in this thing, and Rey coming back and beating back Satan is blasphemous or something like that." I mean, they kind of already have the out, right? They already have the out. Anakin helped her do it. She didn't do it on her own. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she didn't roll up and be like, this dude, bam, 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 bam. You know what I mean? And then he's gone. So to me, again, I can understand where people are at, but I can't really get behind that comparison.
The one thing we keep forgetting though is the tying, other than the Force, the tying thing that was supposed to be going on in Lucas's mind and what he was going, this was the wills, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's completely left out of the equation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where whatever this prophecy was, the chosen one, what the Force is supposed to be, what the balance is, was something that was known or determined by the wills. And we don't get that story. So we're not getting it. We're not getting the microbiotic universe, which I'm still.
I just want to read the scripts.
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit about
Trevorrow's
Trevorrow's stupid script? I want to know about the George Lucas treatments. That's what I want to know about. Come on, Robert. Somebody tell Robert Meyer Burnett to spill the beans on that.
Everyone's hoping for the PDF copy. But I don't know. If we don't have that vision of Lucas and the wills and the path he was going with that, we kind of, us, Disney, everybody, we kind of have to, go by what we have of the mythology right now. And not only what we have of the mythology right now, but drawing upon other aspects of mythologies, which is what all storytelling does.
Yeah.
The Christ figure, I mean, that's been replayed throughout history before Christ. We call it the Christ figure now because that's, everyone knows
he's the most popular one. He won class president.
Yeah. He's got the most subscribers.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the virgin birth's been around for forever as a trope. And George, if you look at it, he drew some from Western Christianity. He drew some stuff from other stuff too. It wasn't just there was some spiritualism, Hinduism, in there too, and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah,
so
Jack Kirby too.
Yeah,
Jack Kirby.
I threw it out there to you guys again, just trying to be the devil's advocate. But I would say, did George ever intend that Anakin was the Christ? Right. I don't think that he did. I think there's plenty of evidence. If you go back through his writing, and just as Dark Daddy Lunga just said, right, like he borrowed things from different things. And there's just as strong an argument that the story came from Buddhist philosophy and other religions, not that it was a specific Christology that he intended Anakin to be. And so if you have already set that in your mind, that Anakin fulfills the Christology of the story, then I think that's where the adjustment needs to come.
Yeah.
If you can readjust that thought, then the sequels fit in far better.
Yeah.
And you can accept it for what it is, and that Anakin was involved with Rey getting up off her feet and going back, right? So don't put him in that role. Right? There's your mistake, right? If you're really upset, then you need to go back and take Anakin out of that role of being the Christ, because I don't think that was ever intended. And I think there's plenty of evidence to say that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right,
I don't think he ever intended that. Do you think, GA, that he intended that?
No, I don't think he intended that. But to be fair, here's the thing people got to remember. We can argue all day about, was there a better way to do it, a worse way to do it, something, we could argue all day about that. It's all subjective. Okay. But the thing is that when you look, we can always, when they like us, when we come up with things and we're saying, well, we see this thread here, we see that thread here, where we, you can make sense of things. And they're like, and there's people who's like, no, it makes absolutely no sense. Okay, well, you're just denying stuff there when you say it makes no sense. Maybe to you, in your liking, you don't think it makes sense. To me, a more valid argument is saying, okay, well, I could see where it makes sense, but I don't like it. That's
Sure.
perfectly fair.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fair.
Absolutely.
But when you say, no, that makes no sense, you're wrong, it doesn't make any sense at all, it's like, come on. No, it doesn't. It makes sense when you look at it in that aspect. And we're not like pulling stuff out of our butts and just making stuff up to make it, to make sense. It can, depends on your viewpoint of it. And if you just don't like it, I think it's great to say, oh, I don't like the way they did it. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like, it's one of those things where it's hard to, I mean, Star Wars is like, look, we know, we get it, right? Like that's why we did the dang gray order, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to make it a little bit better. But like, yeah, when people just say blanket statements like it makes zero sense or it's trash and all these things. And like, to be fair, like I'm a little bit guilty of it too. I just did that video about that script, but I'm sort of like playing it out. yeah. It's ass, right? It's ass, and all that. But, yeah, it's just hard to, because I do understand and appreciate where people are at with it. And frankly, I went into the movie. We did some live streams, we did some videos, and I was like, look, I really think Anakin needs to be in this movie. Like I was very adamant about that. A lot of people in our circle were feeling the same way. And look, did it happen the way we wanted it to? Probably not. I mean, honestly, I would have liked to have Anakin literally visit Ben, and not that scene isn't great with Harrison Ford, but like I feel like a scene between Hayden and Kylo, it would have been magical. You know what I mean? Like would have been legitimately magical to bring him back to the light side. Would have been magical. And then he still shows up to help Rey and do the voice thing and all that. I think it would be really cool. But they did attempt, and I feel like they did think about this and they were trying to respect that. It's not like JJ and Chris Terrio were like, well, you know what? Screw all that jazz. I hated the prequels. Hayden Christensen can't act for shit.
Right.
Screw all that. This is what we're doing now. We're burning it to the ground. You know what I mean? Like that's not what they were.
And what's the other argument? Because there's always this fear of fan service. I could literally see JJ, even though people could say, well, you did a lot of fan service. I could see him saying, oh man, I think throwing Hayden in there is just way too on the nose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see that too. I could see that too. Now I wish,
right
I wish somebody would have been there to be like, ooh, but is it though? You know what I mean? Like that. What do you guys think? Should we get Angus in here? Can we do 4 on this screen?
We could do up to 6.
Holy hell. Okay, cool.
Are you Irish in the chat says another I've talked to her before too. Alora, OG Star Wars, would like to maybe get in the conversation.
Can you send her a link? Just because
I have her on my Twitter.
Cool. If you could send her the link, I'm more than happy. And if anybody needs to go, just let me know as well. But here we go. Let's bring in Black Angus.
Hey.
What's going on, man? How are you?
What up? Thanks. No, I appreciate it. I got a few minutes. I was listening to the early part about, this whole Anakin thing. Daddy freaking stole exactly what I was going to say. It's like, if, it's something I never thought of because it wasn't like, set in stone. See, like, I've defended Last Jedi in the sense that some of the ideas are kind of in tune with Star Wars, this kind of duality, this Taoist kind of center that they tease with Reylo and Kylo and Ben, whatever, or Rey and Ben, whatever that would become. Either they fuse, maybe they have a child and start an order that's gray, or they pulled the curtain up and showed you that this is repetitious. This is the cycle of Star Wars. But yeah, I don't get when he comes full bore. I don't get how you can watch Star Wars. The Force Awakens. It's in the title. Something's reawakening. That you should have been concerned about Anakin's legacy from the start because he and Luke were both balanced and centered. Luke, jumped the shark, whatever, went light side, rebuilt the Jedi, and failed again or whatever.
Yeah.
But it made sense. Palpatine makes sense. It's like just fan service wise, he's already been on 2 trilogies. Why not have him on a third? And that was to me a big sign of like we're trying to please fans. Everyone loves Palpatine, whether you're an OG fan or you're a prequel fan. He was in both as the
Yeah.
villain. I don't get that whole argument. I can see you not liking it, but Star Wars is repetitious. It wasn't going to stay balanced forever. My analogy is: do you think, oh wow, crime happened? A cop died the day before, so cops are pointless. His sacrifice was for nothing. It's never ending. That's the way Star Wars is. That's the
Right.
way Eastern philosophy is. It's a duality. It just keeps going, repetition. So that's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
I mean, I think non-droid characters wasn't it? It was Anakin, Palps, and Obi-Wan are the only ones that were in all 6. I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wanted to answer something Josh was talking about. Oh, the Anakin thing, like seeing him physically and or other Jedi, as Force ghosts. I don't know. I haven't like verified, the source, whatever that he was pointing to. But Jeff Fix did a really good video on that I listened to on the Bullshitters about they were trying to please China, and China not just
Right.
being a secular communist country, but apparently they really hate ghosts over there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And so that might have been apparently why, because they're trying to cater to China, even though this is like old news to them. This whole, philosophy of Star Wars, the core of it, that's them every day if they're philosophical or religious.
Sure.
So it's like, why even market to them? It's what Star Wars is Lucas's fetishization of those philosophies.
Yeah, I
don't
would
mean
agree
that in
with
a
that.
bad
Yeah,
way.
yeah. No, I know, and I actually like that. I'm okay with that characterization. I might rub some people the wrong way. I like it. I will say that when it comes to the physical ghost, the only reason I don't buy that, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is it's not in any of the leaks and any of the sources that I had or any of the people that I was talking to leading up to the film. They never shot any of that. The only thing that I heard, we were all clinging to hope that maybe they brought these dudes in on a green screen or something and shot the Force ghosts of Kylo, or sorry, of Anakin, maybe Mace Windu, maybe some of these people, right? But that was never confirmed by anybody. And also, the thing about the China thing is they make a lot of changes to Disney movies for a China cut anyways. So there are MCU movies that are missing up to 11 different scenes in them because Marvel and Disney knows what will upset the Chinese audience, and they edit it out, right? So a lot of, if there's anything LGBT, gets cut. If there's any ghost stuff, gets cut. If what else? There's other weird stuff that they really don't like maybe mind control or something. There's other things that are just culturally not good with them, and Disney's been really good about just cutting it out. And so it's hard for me to believe that that would have been a scene they shot but then cut out from the entire film just for China, considering that they should know by now that the Chinese audiences are pretty much rejecting Disney Star Wars, right? So that's kind of
Well, you can be more generic than that. I mean, Chinese audiences never embraced Star Wars.
Yeah, they were never really that.
yeah.
It's really. I mean, if you think when Stan, because we were talking about it in the chat too before, and he put up the statistics and the stuff. I mean, Europe was a bigger hit than China, to be honest with you. Not only was it a bigger hit, money wise for Rise of Skywalker, they just drew in. I mean, when you look at the numbers of The Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Europe drew in way more money than China to begin with. It's not. I mean, it's really not even that much. Like if The Rise of Skywalker drew in, let's say, similar domestic numbers as Last Jedi and similar Europe numbers as The Last Jedi, China could have literally done $0 and it would have been a $1.4 billion movie.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Angus, I want to get your thoughts on a couple more things just before you have to go or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because I know that you hang out with a little bit more Fandom Menace people. Is there like a look, we don't like to necessarily generalize, but do you get a sense that more of the people on that side are upset about the Anakin thing in Rise?
Yeah, I mean that's what I see people harp on, and I've talked to people and I've shown them like I think I've kind of put it in a way that makes sense where it's like, oh, I've been latching on so much. The biggest thing to me is like, I don't buy people on the outside say fan miss they hate the prequels. They're the reason Lucas sold, and that's weird because we weren't even a thing then.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been a prequel, that's what got me to Star Wars. But I do think there is a lot of OG fandom in the Menace, and so I think this is just a scapegoat to hate. Another thing to harp on from a lot of people, big and small, that it's just fitting the narrative. I feel like the ugly duckling, where it's like, hey, I'm being legitimate here. I really liked this movie. It made sense.
Yeah.
There's things that had to carry on. You couldn't just completely circumvent. Otherwise, you set the precedent of directors doing whatever the hell they want each movie and
Right.
pay no mind to the previous, which is what Ryan did, and JJ I think threaded that really well with still serving Raylos, still serving I would say the Menace and hardcore fans that hated 8.
Yeah.
And and even I would say episode 8 in the sense of like steering around them with still acknowledging like they're part of canon, the plot points. So but yeah, I do have to go. We'll have to talk more. Maybe come by Friday for my official monetization stream. I'll try to get Darth Lunga and Tara's been great.
Yeah, Tara's awesome.
She wants to come on, and maybe more. But yeah, we'll hang out. Thanks. Got to get my kid.
All right. Take care, brother. It's good to have it. Good to have Angus on. He's good people.
Yep, good people.
Yeah, no, I think that look, he kind of hinted at it, but yeah, the idea of sort of a scapegoat for frustrations that are, I think sometimes it's easier if you're trying to build a narrative, maybe to pick out what would be the most popular complaint, not necessarily like the most accurate complaint. Like there's plenty of stuff that you can actually like complain about with Rise, right? Like, there's that first act that's pretty crammed. There's a lot of things like that. But I think when it comes to the Anakin thing, the reason I think a lot of people latch onto it is because it's a statement on how like the sequels just don't belong in the club. They're like the SAT answer. One of these things doesn't belong. Which one is it? Yeah. And they're like, oh, it's this one. Because they ruined Anakin, you know what I mean? And I don't obviously buy it, but people are free to feel the way that they do about it, I guess. So I don't know.
I mean, the funny thing is, everyone wanted to see Anakin, but again, if you, well, Return of the Jedi is not the end of the Skywalker saga. To be fair, an argument can be made. It's the end of Anakin's story.
Yeah,
that's I mean, yeah, people want to see him come back and all this other good stuff. I get it. But maybe there's no wisdom left for him to impart. You know what I mean? Well, Luke knows his story. He knows everything that happened. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing left for him to impart on people, other than, hey, I'm messed up. You know what I mean? That's about
right.
all they can say, I mean, maybe an argument can be made. I could see Kylo. Okay, let's say if there's an Anakin Force Ghost coming talking to Kylo, like let's say Luke was hanging out with Rey, and they like tag team it, and Anakin was hanging out with Kylo. You know what I mean? I could see that where his grandfather could be saying, "Listen, you thought you were listening to me, you weren't. Listen to me now." You know what I mean?
That would have been awesome. Dude.
That would have been cool.
Yeah,
I would have loved that. You know what I mean? Especially if you get that little slide screen to do all the time. You see Luke Force Ghost with Rey, and then you see Anakin Force Ghost with Kylo. You know what I mean? And I think that would have been awesome. And then when neither of them are listening, you see Anakin and Luke just look at each other, just shaking their heads, going, "These kids."
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Them crazy kids.
You know what makes this just popped into my head? I kind of want to talk about this. What do you think? Let's say we go 1,000 years into the future after Rise of Skywalker. What do you think the people of the galaxy at that time? What do you think their perceptions would be of Anakin, of Darth Vader, of the Emperor, and then of Rey? Like, what would they think if it's 1,000 years in the future? You guys have any thoughts?
Myth and legend.
Well, I think the legacy of this saga is that the Skywalker and Palpatine bloodlines caused a huge rift in the Force that affected an entire generation. Like it affected affected the entire universe. And when these forces combined, it threw things askew for quite a while. And I've mentioned in other forums that I think that Rey needs to not have children. I know that goes opposite of you, Josh, but if Rey has children, that Palpatine bloodline continues, right? Even though she's taken on the Skywalker name. I think for this to end, so to look back 1,000 years in the past, say, boy, you remember when those Skywalkers and Palpatines were messing with things. Good thing that ended, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
It's an era, right? It becomes an era that is encapsulated. So that's what I think. It'll be an encapsulated era, the era that people look back on and say, we can't let that happen again.
Yep, yep. Because it's like, I mean, people keep talking about the storied Skywalker bloodline. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, it's 3 generations. Okay, yeah. it's Anakin, Luke, and Kylo, and Leia as a branch. That's it. That's it. We're talking about thousands of years of Jedis, and Sith. That's it. It was 50 years. It wasn't, much. Now it was during a time of gigantic upheaval, obviously, which is what plays into the chosen one aspect of it. Correct, that's why they did what they came to do, and now they're gone. And one can be said, this is, again, technically it's Legends, even though Revan has been made canon by name. The last time there was this kind of great, ridiculous upheaval was Revan's time, which was 1,000 years prior to it. You know what I mean? And they don't really talk about it. So, I mean, that's what I think. 1,000 years in the future, I mean, it'll be talked about, but I think it'll be a blip. You know what I mean? It'll be a blip. You might have some of the fanatics. You'll probably have people who are like Vader fanatics or stuff like that, or little cults of stuff like that. But I think it'll be mostly like forgetting the past. They'll make the same mistakes because they forgot the past.
Interesting. Yeah. So this kind of leads me into some thoughts about like what because I think the Sith are coming back again in the future. I don't think you can really tell stories in the future without them coming back. And so it would be really interesting as far as there's still Sith holocrons, right? There's still a lot of history and myth out there about the Sith. Mm-hmm. Exegol appears to be destroyed, but I do not believe that Exegol is the only Sith planet or Sith temple out in the unknown regions, or perhaps even in galaxies away. So the Sith will probably always come back. Now, when they speak of the Sith, when they talk about Palpatine or Sidious, how do you think that story will go? Will they, because to me, this is really the whole reason that it doesn't take away from Anakin's arc, is that Episode 9 is like a footnote at the bottom of the page. The story of Palpatine is the story of a young man that is trained in the ways of the dark side and literally goes about taking over the entire galaxy. He takes over the entire galaxy, destroys the Jedi Order, ascends to this incredible level, and then is ultimately defeated when his apprentice, the person that he trusts the most, turns on him, which, by the way, is totally what the Rule 2 is about, so he shouldn't have been that surprised, right? But his apprentice turns on him and destroys him for the love of his son, right? And then, the footnote is, after that epic story, it's like, oh, yeah, and then he tried to come back to life, and his granddaughter shot that down with the help of all of the Jedis on Snapchat or something. You know what I mean? That's kind of, that to me, that's, if they were telling the story of Palpatine thousands of years in the future, what happens in 9 is really not that big of a part of his story, even though he's a big part of the story in 9. Does that make sense?
Well, tied to World War II and Hitler, there's a real close connection through just the imagery of Star Wars back to Nazi Germany, right? And that was everything with Blunt, right? That was there. And if you look at the attack on Berlin when Hitler finally took his life, that was a minor bit of it, right? D-Day, the attack at Normandy, all of that is the highlight, the big part of World War II. Everybody recognizes that's when the tides turned. That's when the Allied forces kind of took over. And when you look back on the legacy of Hitler, it was during his expansion, it was during his reign that he gained all that notoriety.
They usually go out with a whimper.
That's right. It went down really quick, and then he took his own life. So, as you just said, it went out with a whimper. He shot himself in a bunker in a hole, right? The Russians found him, and that was the end. Yeah. There was no trial. There's no, decisive ending. They didn't even do Mussolini and hang him up in the street, right? That was just the end of Hitler. I think that you get that with Palpatine. The big story of Palpatine is obviously the first six, right? His reign, his coming to power, taking over the galaxy, that great big part. The sequel trilogy is the attack on Berlin, right? It's the siege of Berlin. That's all it is.
And I think, like I said, we look at it as two parts of a saga where we have the OG and this, and for us it's 40 years. We felt that time. You know what I mean? If you're talking about 1,000 years in the future, they're going to look at that as one era.
Right.
True.
The original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, it's all.
But it's kind of like
trilogy, one era.
Not to cut you off, but I think too there will be this thing depending on the perspective. The idea is the Sith fall. Bane establishes the rule of two and eviscerates a lot of the Sith himself, right? And then they go into hiding and they're a shadow threat until Palpatine. So even though it's one era, it is literally the revenge of the Sith, right? So it is literally the Sith coming back and sort of destroying the Jedi.
They took their time.
Right. And the Jedi, as far as we know, in 1,000 years, anything could happen, but they have really not rebuilt themselves. They have not recovered from that. But sorry, go ahead.
But no, but that was pretty much it. But when you're talking about 1,000 years, you were talking about your ideal future movie. But it's like, it makes me think about things like, an enigmatic and charismatic Sith leader, okay, or organization, or even if they do away with the rule of two, okay, let's say they like this didn't work. You know what I mean? Let's. I mean, Bane had an idea, but look how long it took, and it doesn't work. And their idea is to do like how modern politics are, to where it's like, no, let's create a cult of personality.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Let's create a cult of personality. Let's people become an antichrist kind of figured, where most of the populace, they were beloved, you know what I mean, not feared, and think that this is the right way, but it's not. And then in the other way, but now the Jedi, the underground people, they're like, no, we don't, we know who this guy really is, we know what's really going on here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be pretty cool, if you kind of reverse the roles that way.
I feel like the Sith in the future will probably try to take the best from all of the different teachers, right? So maybe a little bit of depends on what they do. If they do Vitiate or not, Vitiate, in my mind, didn't necessarily even have that much philosophy. He was just insanely powerful, right?
Yeah.
And then Malik and Revan, the teachings of Sidious, the teachings of Bane. I really like how Bane's teachings are forming the Sith and Plagueis' thoughts in the Plagueis novel, and all of that's really interesting. But the Sith almost, even in the era of the Rule of Two, they almost always had secret apprentices. They almost always were sort of breaking the Rule of Two. So the Rule of Two was really more of like a rule of not a ton of us, basically. Like, what I mean?
Well, I think a lot of them did it too because they figured it'll be easier for me to take out my master if I have someone who's loyal to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? We saw Dooku was kind of doing it, even though he kept he kept her like in the background. Oh my God, what her name has escaped me. Bald.
Yeah, it's not Asajj. Is it Asajj
Ventress? Yeah, Ventress. Okay. Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
He kept her like promising her, but always kept her not making her a Sith because he knew he couldn't really do that. You know what I mean?
And then at one point, Palpatine just tells him, he's like, "Yo, get rid of her."
Yeah, that's it.
Sure, why it's doing.
I
love.
Like they said in the chat, Josh. I'm here because I'm on vacation. Normally, I wouldn't be able to be here at this time during the week.
Yeah.
But you, I don't know what your schedule is, but for this kind of stream, you might have more people coming in if you could do an evening stream for this kind of thing, and you'll be able to get more people coming because a lot of people are at work.
I know, and that's what's crazy. Like this thing happens where, because to me, this is like my job, right? So I'm So I'm trying to wrap everything up before 5, so I can kick it. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
Mr. Hottie Toddy YouTube creator. You know, some of us has jobs.
Yeah. I'm sorry. But no, I get it. And like, I would be totally down to do streams later in the day too. You know, Friday, I'm really excited, man, to sit down with Charles Murphy.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
tweet.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
did the tweet ever go out? Because I saw it was there and then it wasn't.
He got it. I think he put a different one up. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It might have just been a timing thing, or maybe I tweeted right after that and I killed the engagement or something. Ken's really good about that. So like, he'll usually try to figure it out with that. I know we got people on the Twitter that are already posting questions that they'd like us to ask, and I think he'll probably tweet that out again like tomorrow and the next day just to kind of get some questions for that. But that's gonna be really cool. I'm gonna press him on. Oh, I keep doing that. I keep forgetting that we're doing the Streamlabs things. People keep seeing my Twitter. But I'm excited to pick his brain about like Secret Wars and Dark Avengers, and I just gotta know, bro. You know what I mean? I just gotta know. Like, I'm just gonna be like, hey, Charles, it's nice of you to come on to the show. Tell me everything. Secret Wars now. You know, so I'm looking forward to that. But
and I know you're a Marvel guy, and I know, and I don't think you follow the DC CW shows at all, do you?
I love those shows. I have fallen way off of them, though. I will be.
So you haven't watched Crisis?
I have. Yeah. No, I didn't.
I
didn't watch the last episode. I think the last one that I watched was when Oliver became the Spectre.
Okay. Last night they put out episode 4 and 5.
They put out 2 last night.
Both, and you
wait. I'm getting a prediction.
Like,
I'm getting so Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah,
I
know
saying,
about it.
There's no way you did not see this. It was all over damn Twitter.
I know. I thought about doing a video with a real clickbaity thumbnail and then just sitting there in the video and be like, I don't even like DC. Because that's what everybody thinks anyways.
Yeah, I know. But I thought that's a big deal. That's kind of solidifying that even though because all we got was a director and a release date, which we all know doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right.
They can still shut it down pretty quickly. But I think that's saying, no, we're going with this.
Unless he's destroyed in the next episode.
Well, he was just a cameo. He's from another Earth. So.
The other cameo needs to be Zack Snyder. And Zack Snyder needs to come in and be like, I'm the real anti-monitor bitch, and then just destroy.
I'm from the Schneiderverse.
I'm the Snyder Cut universe.
He's got a flag anytime Den of Nerds puts they copyright claim it right away. So you could have just put a thing out there and sat there and said, "Come get me." And
when I made my stream this morning about it, my first instinct was I want to show that scene because you want to hear the vocals, and I'm like,
yeah,
man. And all I keep thinking about is now every time Josh puts up anything Warner Brothers, bam, gone. I'm like, no,
they are fast. Yeah, and dude, remember when they even struck my Marvel video because I used a clip of a Fantastic Four show from the '60s, and apparently Warner Brothers has some kind of licensing thing on that, and I'm like, they're even striking my Marvel videos now. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Oh, which by the way, I got an email. It was like 3 days ago that they finally released the claim on the Birds of Prey trailer video that I did.
Really? Finally.
So they only waited until it was a literally dead video.
Yeah, no one cares anymore.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, literally nobody's watching this now." Okay. Well, yeah, you can have it back. It's like, okay, thanks.
Sure, you go put a bug up, make it back up, and make no money.
I know, right? Thanks a lot, Warner Brothers. And I love DC. That's the thing too. Is like people get the wrong idea. No, I absolutely love DC. In fact, when I was younger, it was way more Justice League than Avengers. Like the Justice Leagues, particularly the Green Lanterns. Dude, the Green Lanterns were my shit. And I really liked
Max, buddy. HBO Max.
Yeah, I'm excited. I really am. I like Jeff Johns. So I'm hoping that. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that great of a track record with his producing in Hollywood. But he's a brilliant
I don't think they really gave him I mean, he didn't. Let's put it this way. If they would have gave him Feige level control, we could have seen something. That's what I think.
But that's the thing. In Hollywood, you don't just get Feige level control.
I know. You have to kind of earn it.
Yeah. And technically everything that Johns has his name attached to.
Down the pooper.
From the studio perspective, they're like, this dude?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Yeah,
what's the chances Warner Brother will sell DC? Somebody else.
No way. No way. I saw some people talking about that too, or even suggesting the idea that they'd shut down their comic books or something. I'm just like, no way. Like, no freaking way at all. But yeah, guys, well, I'll let you guys go. Thanks so much for being here. I hope to have you guys both on again soon. One more time, let them know where you're at. Let them know what you're about. Star Wars Santa. Let the
Well, you
people
can
know.
find, yeah, thanks so much. You can find me on YouTube, Star Wars Santa. I'm also part of the Discord, the Great Council, part of that Discord discussion on the Den of Nerds. You can find me commenting about Star Wars lots of places. So tonight we'll be doing a discussion on the Clone Wars animated series as we lead up to the new season coming out. So we're taking a chunk of those tonight. So if you get a chance, you'd like to hear some discussion about that, we'll be on later today.
Awesome. GA, let the people know where you at. What you doing?
Yeah, so Great Council, you can just either just search the Great Council, or our good man Ryan's been linking me and Santa the whole chat, so you can just grab on one of those links as well. Like I said, primarily it is a Star Wars channel, but I'm expanding, talking about a lot of geeky things, comic books, MCU, DC, fantasy, other sci-fi. So we talk about a lot of things. My regular stream is on Sunday nights, or Sunday during the day. I do sometimes on Saturday as well, and sometimes I do surprise ones throughout the week too. It's mostly live streams. I'll probably be trying to put a little bit of uploaded content here and there, but it's going to be mostly live streams. So yeah, come on over there, check it out, hit subscribe, and maybe hit the bell, because you never know when I'm going to put a video up.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely recommend checking both these guys out, and they'll be on this stream channel a lot in 2020. Because look, this is what I want to do in 2020. I want to just have more conversation. I want to chat. I want to hang out more with the community. So that's why we kind of created this channel. Gaming is still coming back. Gaming will launch again on Friday, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in gaming. I want to say one last thing before I get out of here. If you guys are big fans of R-rated Star Wars conversations, and I know many of you guys probably watched the stream with Papa Don a couple of weeks ago. Everybody loved Papa Don, the Greek god. Everybody loved him. He's hilarious. I went on their podcast last night, NFO, New Force Order. Great time. Great dudes. Very brash. I wouldn't listen to it if you have thin skin. If you want to hear them dog me, because I bailed on them last night to hang out with a lady friend, they dog on me pretty hard about that. I think it's pretty entertaining. But again, I would warn you, not one for the kids, but definitely go check out NFO if you're looking to get really entertained. It was a good podcast last night.
Yeah, they're good people. Hilarious.
Yeah, they are really funny. They don't mean to offend. They're just brash. No. You know what I mean? They're just brash dudes. But again, thanks a lot, guys, and I appreciate it. And guys, as I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you in the next